What's going on, everybody? This is JVB with the Postgame Report podcast. So, the New York Giants are featured in Hard Knocks. Hard Knocks. Wow. I said that in the most New York way. And maybe borderline Boston accent. So, I apologize for that because Boston is New York's arch nemesis, and Philadelphia and Washington. The list just goes on, especially when it comes to the New York Giants and football. So, as I was trying to say, the New York Giants are featured in HBO Max Hard Knocks. And this is historical because the New York Giants have never been featured on Hard Knocks. And I almost said it again, hard. Anyway, it is hot as hell in New York City, and I'm sitting here with no AC or a fan. Now, I wanted to talk about the first episode of Hard Knocks featuring the New York Giants offseason. This is going to feature the Giants talking about free agency, the roster leading up to the draft, and after the draft. So we're going to see Saquon Barkley going to the Philadelphia Eagles, Brian Burns being traded to the New York Giants, so on and so on. Malik Neighbors being drafted by the New York Giants. So I'm looking forward to all of that. We got an introduction, and it was something that I have always wanted to see as a New York Giants fan, to see the New York Giants on Hard Knocks. And here it is. It is not going to be the traditional episodes that we're accustomed to seeing, where they have a season, they follow a team for an entire season, and then they have Hard Knocks where they cover a team during the half season and on, I believe, to the end of the season. Excuse me. So, with the New York Giants, if you're not familiar, if you never listened to me talk about the New York Giants, I've been a fan since '86, and I remember finding a magazine. It wasn't even a magazine. It was like a newspaper dedicated to the New York Giants. And at one point, there was two newspapers. Now, I keep thinking it's Giants Insider and New York Giants Weekly. This is a long time ago. I'm 52 years old. Now, I found these magazines, and they would cover the New York Giants during the season, during the offseason, leading up to the draft. They would have their own draft coverage. And it was not a routine. It was something I had to do. I had to pick up these newspapers as soon as they hit the newsstand. And sometimes the newsstand wouldn't get it on the same day, like consistently. So I had to go walking around the Bronx trying to find a place to find these newspapers. And as I got older, in my early 20s and so on, I found places in Manhattan and Queens that would have these on a consistent basis. So not only would I buy two of these different publications, these newspapers, but I would also buy whatever magazines came out during that summer leading into the NFL season. The other tradition I had was that whenever I took my yearly vacation to Florida, I would look at the, concession stands or whatever little stores they would have in the airport back in the day, and they would have all of these freaking magazines for all the sports. And every year I would get the same magazine talking about the NFL draft. Sometimes the draft had just happened, so they'll have all of their grades. They'll talk about all the players. And I would read that magazine. As soon as I picked it up, waiting to get into the flight. I would read it on the flight. I would read it to the drive to our hotel. And then I would read it while taking a dump, whenever. Any free time I had. Instead of enjoying my vacation in Florida to Disney World, I was here looking at New York Giants football. Looking at magazines, reading the magazines, reading the newspapers. I would even watch college football. Sometimes they would have like early spring training, like football locally for the local colleges. So having the New York Giants on Hard Knocks is, especially when you consider that this is all of the things I used to read in the off season during the summer, seeing them talk about free agency, talk about their roster, breaking down the roster, the type of players they want, if they're going to let Saquon Barkley hit the market, who do they feel they're going to draft in the NFL draft? All of that stuff I read in these magazines, in these newspapers. And I wanted New York Giants content 24/7. That's how big of a fan I used to be. I am still a big New York Giants fan. But now that we do have New York Giants content, and thanks to all of the content creators who provide that, like it's great, right? But I'm 52 years old, and now life has taken me a different direction where other things interest me. So I don't watch all of this New York Giants content. You know, I'm talking about YouTube. I'm talking about podcasts. I'm talking about magazines. Well, in this case, how many magazines are really out there? But nonetheless, there's blogs, there's websites. You can go to YouTube and watch an entire football game from 1990, right? You have the New York Giants versus the Washington Commanders. So you could find New York Giants content everywhere nowadays. But back when it was really sparse, there was something magical to picking up a magazine, picking up a New York Giants newspaper, and just reading it over and over because you just couldn't wait till football. You know, you couldn't wait for football to start. And back then, it was minicamp, training camp, preseason, and then the season. And so whatever information was out there about the New York Giants, it was a blessing. So, yeah, there's an abundance or overabundance of New York Giants content nowadays. I got a little burnt out watching so many people talk about the New York Giants on YouTube because a lot of the channels have resorted to clickbait titles. For example, when the New York Giants traded for Brian Burns, there were these elaborate clickbaity titles saying how the New York Giants just changed the NFL, blah, blah, blah. And then they used the same title for Malik Neighbors. So at that point, I'm not even watching those videos. I stick to the usual suspects. I'll listen to Bob Papa and Carl Banks, Talking Giants, Big Blue Banter, and I'll listen to the guys, Schmelk and P-Dot. I'll listen to them. And Giants Insider Podcast. I'll listen to those guys as well. But that's about it. I really don't listen to every New York Giants podcast because after a while, when things get slow, these people begin making things up. And let me not get into the whole Twitter spaces dedicated to New York Giants football, I used to jump on a few and look forward to listening to, like 3 a day. Some of them would last like 8 hours. So as someone who grew up loving the Giants, at first it was like, wow, I am amongst my fans. We are truly, we are true fans of this New York Giants organization. But then it began to weed itself. Like the crazies began to weed themselves out. Even to this day, with all of the good moves the New York Giants have made, every Twitter space seems to boil down to Daniel Jones. And it's like, come on, guys. So there's only a few spaces I will bother to listen to. And that's that. I think it's one space. So, yeah. Once in a while, I'll jump on Charlie's space, and then I'll hear a few, we're accustomed to Charlie and talking shit about the New York Giants. But then it feels like everybody wants to do what Charlie does because Charlie gets acknowledgement from the New York Giants official podcast. So it seems like people want to be acknowledged. And so they'll go out of their way to talk the most nonsensical trash. And who's the biggest target? Daniel Jones. People saw this first episode of Hard Knocks, and it became, you see, Daniel Jones and Sean and Brian Dable, they're morons because they're supporting Daniel Jones. That was that was all people took from this. Well, not everybody. I'm talking about a particular space that I went to thinking that I was going to hear some very good feedback about this episode. And no, it became 30 minutes, the 30 minutes that I was there, of people bashing Shane. I think I called him Sean. Joe Shane, Brian Dable, and most importantly, Daniel Jones. That's all it became all about. So I enjoyed the episode. For me, it was historic. To see the New York Giants organization, especially an organization that's been around 100 years and has always kept things close to the chest when it came to the behind-the-scenes operation. So as a New York fan, New York Giants fan that is, we are getting a glimpse. We are not hearing rumors. We are not hearing, quote-unquote, insider information. We are seeing it. Now, yeah, certain things could be scripted. They could be acting a little bit. But nonetheless, it's great to see all of the work that goes into simply scouting one player. So imagine the season just finished, and now you're back to work before you can even enjoy a week with your family. You're already on the road scouting. You're the GM. You're trying to find a way to improve your roster, so on and so on. The coach is already trying to think of a game plan. They were hiring a new defensive coordinator. There was drama with that. I'm sure they're not going to get into that with Wink. But we don't need to see that. There was plenty of talk about that in the New York media. I have a good feeling about this New York Giants team this year. I'm not saying they're going to go to the Super Bowl, but I have a good feeling that we are going to see an improved New York Giants team. Now, to be fair, the New York Giants could go only one way, and that's up. Things could get worse because it has in the past, right? We've seen bad New York Giants teams, and in the next season, they're even worse. I have a really strong, positive feeling about this New York Giants team going into the 2024 season. And that, you think of the New York Knicks, I see that happening for the New York Giants. I really do. And if you've listened to any of my previous episodes talking about the New York Giants, you know that I'm a realistic fan, and I will realistically analyze my team. I'm not here to fucking clickbait. I'm not here to lie so you can like me. None of that shit. But I do see a positive or an upswing for this New York Giants team. And yes, we have Daniel Jones back as quarterback. All I can say is he is who he is, and the quarterback is the quarterback that we have right now. Now it's up to Daniel Jones to play better, to stay healthy, and for the rest of the offense to do their part. Meaning, the offensive line needs to be better. They need to block. The receivers need to get open. They need to stop dropping balls. Malik Nabers, he is going to change the way teams play the New York Giants on passing downs. He is a legitimate threat. He is going to demand respect. Now, it's not going to happen right away because teams are going to dare Daniel Jones to pass the ball, and they're going to want to see if Daniel Jones is going to pass it to Malik Nabers past 5 yards. Those things need to happen immediately. Once you let the NFL know that Daniel Jones will find Malik Nabers past the 10-yard mark, whether they complete it or not, that just lets NFL defenses know, okay, we need to keep an eye on Malik Nabers and let the other receivers beat us. And Wan'Dale Robinson, the kid has a lot of talent. He is extremely quick, extremely tough. He's a former running back in college, so he will run after catching the ball. So the New York Giants have some talent on that offense, some legitimate talent, but it always comes down to the quarterback and the offensive line. In my opinion, the offensive line has improved. Unfortunately, we still have questions about Evan Neal and Daniel Jones. The right tackle and the quarterback, two very important pieces of any offense. And it's a damn shame that we have these question marks for two key pieces, crucial pieces for any offense. So we'll see. And I really believe it, and I'm not blowing smoke up anybody's ass, that this New York Giants team is going to win 9 games minimum. They'll compete in the NFC East. And that's all you can ask for. They beat the Eagles last season, 1 game, but that's an improvement. Now we need to beat the Cowboys. Hopefully, during both games, right? Beat the Cowboys. And I don't mean beat them like by 3 points. Kick their ass. Beat up Washington and beat up on the Eagles. That's all the New York Giants have to focus on. Win their division, which is really tough because the Eagles and the Cowboys are really good. So it's unfortunate for the Giants that they are in the same division with 2 other perennial playoff teams. And then if Washington somehow decides to start playing as a team, rallying around their rookie quarterback Daniels, they could be dangerous because they have some dangerous weapons on offense. But similar to the New York Giants, they also have offensive line problems. And with a rookie quarterback, that's not good. So we'll see. It could be the New York Giants contending for the number 2 position in the NFC East. And folks, that is an improvement. That is a real improvement because that number 2 spot could be better than the NFC Central. And they could get into a wild card position, a playoff spot. I won't go that far, but the Giants, in my opinion, will be right there in the thick of things. Of course, for any NFL team, health is an issue and player improvement. So this is nothing new in the NFL, but I feel strongly that the New York Giants are heading towards the right direction. And I look forward to this week's episode of Hard Knocks featuring the New York Giants. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Let me know what you think. You can leave me a voice message. Let me know what you think of the New York Giants heading into 2024 and what you think of Hard Knocks. So anyway, I'm JVB. I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.